Hello, welcome to another one of Mrs. Callhammer's videos. We're going to talk about organic chemistry today, and I have my fun models out ready to teach you about organic chemistry. So get your earbuds in, I hope you're listening, and paying attention. I'm going to do this a lot, so no, just kidding, I won't. That's kind of annoying. All right, so organic chemistry. This is section 4 in chapter 6. Chapter 6 is all about chemistry. Section 4 is devoted to a branch of chemistry called organic chemistry. This is a nice little intro into the awesomeness that organic chemistry is. So what makes it organic rather than general chemistry? Organic chemistry is chemistry that involves compounds that contain carbon. They contain the atom carbon, the element carbon. And carbon is found in most biological molecules. Carbon has some very cool bonding properties that make it the essential component in biological organic compounds. So here is a carbon atom. Notice how there's 4 electrons in the outer shell. This allows it to bond with 4 hydrogens, thus making both of them happy to produce large structures. Carbon can form chains, as you see here, carbon, 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 carbon. It can form branched molecules, or it can form rings. Here we see a hexagon. Sometimes it forms pentagons. Those are 2 good examples. Macromolecules. So the rest of the chapter will be devoted to these things called macromolecules. If you're to build a large molecule, you're going to join many small molecules together. I'm wearing a very beautiful necklace, okay? Think of a necklace as a macromolecule. Another name for a macromolecule, a non-specific name, would be a polymer. Polymers are molecules made from repeating units, that would be the beads in this case, of identical or nearly identical compounds called monomers. Okay, so here's a monomer, here's a monomer, 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 monomer. Together, they make a polymer. All right, there are 4 main categories of macromolecules that we'll talk about. The first will be carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, always in a 1:2 to 1 ratio. And there is a formula that goes with carbohydrates and represents the number of CH2 units in that chain. So if you have 3 units, you would have 3 carbon, 6 hydrogen, 3 oxygen. So let's take a look at this carbohydrate. This is a simple sugar called glucose, simple because it's just 1 hexagon by itself. How many carbons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons. How many oxygens? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 1. So, and then there should be 12 hydrogen because it's double that. So why do we need carbohydrates? They're an essential energy source for us. So we put the carbohydrates in our face because it gives us energy. Glucose gives you energies. And also, we use it for cellular support. It's a component of the cell membrane, for example, carbohydrates. When you add 2 of them together, they form so 2 beads together, it forms a disaccharide. An example is sucrose, table sugar. When you put many hexagons together, that would be like many glucose, it forms a large polysaccharide. An example would be glycogen, which your body stores in your muscles. The next category of macromolecule is called a lipid. It's made of carbon and hydrogen as well, and some oxygen, and some phosphates sometimes. And your lipids primarily store energy. That's the purpose. That's why we need them. In plants, for example, it's also used to prevent water loss. In beehives, it's used to make honeycomb. So lipids are a major class of macromolecule. The next type is called a protein. And this is why I have this thing here. Proteins are compounds made of smaller units called amino acids. So here is an amino acid. Here's another amino acid. Here's another amino acid. Okay, so amino acids continue along just like beads on a string. Proteins, the building blocks, are amino acids. Proteins are made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, okay, and sometimes sulfur. And this is the general structure. So here's one amino acid right here. One amino acid, one thumbtack, okay? Amino acid, thumbtack. This is many amino acids together. Amino acids are the building blocks. And there are 20 different amino acids, or 20 different colors of thumbtacks, but I don't have 20. I only have like 5, okay? And they can be in various combinations. Why do we need proteins? We need proteins for structural support in our bods and living things. They transport substances between cells. For example, hemoglobin is a protein that transfers oxygen. We need it for signaling between cells because cells need to communicate because they're alive. And they speed up chemical reactions like enzymes. And they control cell growth, to name a few. The function of proteins is very diverse. The cool things about proteins also is they can form more complex structure. This would be considered the simple structure of proteins. It can further fold, more bonds in between the parts. Back it up here to form a structure like this. It can become helical. Ooh, here's my other one. Like this. And it can also join 2 or more strands to become what's called a large globular protein. Hemoglobin is actually made up of 4 of these strands, like you see there. Nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are the 4th group of major macromolecules, again made of carbon, but also hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. They have a phosphate group, okay? So the general structure of a nucleic acid is made up of these building blocks called nucleotides. Here is one nucleotide. Every nucleotide has a carbon pentagon with what's called a base and a phosphate group. So phosphate group, sugar, base. Phosphate group, sugar, base. Phosphate group, sugar, base. Phosphate, sugar, base. These are 4 nucleic acids stacked on each other to make, or 4 nucleotides stacked on each other to make a nucleic acid. What are they for in the body? They store genetic information and they transmit genetic information to make proteins. So there are 2 types of nucleic acids, and we'll talk more about them in detail in the genetics unit. There's deoxyribose nucleic acid, or DNA, and ribonucleic acid, or RNA.